Hey, what is going on, you guys? It's Mr. Delgado. We're going to do our review of this week's topics. We were looking at relationships. I am praying that you guys all watch this video before Monday or Tuesday, which was the time that you guys would be taking your guys' test. So what we covered in class was how to identify the relationships of angles. Again, we know that complementary angles are two angles whose measure add up to 90 degrees. Supplementary angles are two angles whose measure add up to 180 degrees. Okay. Again, remember that 180 degrees is a straight line. So from here to here is 180 degrees. That is super helpful when it comes to what we're going to be looking at today. 90 degrees, not so much for our angles today, but supplementary is definitely going to be something you guys will be seeing a lot in this video. Also remember that another term for supplementary angles is linear pair, right? Linear pair. So in class we talked about a transversal. A transversal is a line that crosses parallel lines to create pairs of congruent and supplementary angles. So when we have two parallel lines cut by a transversal, it creates all kinds of angles, right? It creates 8 of them actually, specifically. There's 8, 4 interiors and 4 exterior angles. We'll know that a lot of these angles are congruent, which is on the next line, congruent, it means they have the same measurement. So giving a preview of the next unit we'll be covering, we're going to be looking at triangles and proving that the triangles can be congruent. So it's not only angles that are going to be congruent, you could also have sides that have equal length, which would also be congruent, right? And so the example we talked about in class was finding, I called these tick marks, which side would be congruent to side AB, and you guys would have to say, well, that would be side DE, right? It's important that you guys keep your guys' corresponding angles together in the format. So we got A has 2 lines on it, so D has 2 lines on it, and then E has 1 line and B has 1 line on it. So these guys are corresponding to each other, right? Or in the same position. Okay, so that's just a preview of the next unit as an angles that we are going to be looking at triangles, right? And so sides can also be congruent. Okay, so looking at this pair of parallel lines and the transversal, we'll notice that we have interior angles and exterior angles. And the way I remember this is thinking about my car, right? Think about my car, and if I'm going to go to a detailer and ask them, hey, can you detail the interior of my car? What am I asking them to do? I'm telling them, hey, can you clean the inside of my car? And then if I have them detail the exterior, they're cleaning the outside of my car. So I always just think about the parallel lines as I think about a car, and the inside of the car is interior, and the outside of the car is the exterior. Okay? And so one of the little things that I did with you guys in class that I thought was a fun activity was I gave you the measure of one angle. And I asked you, can you find the measure, or I asked you how many angles could you find the measure of on these. So right, so I labeled all of them. This is angle 1, this is angle 2, this is angle 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. The truth is that just given one angle, you can find the measure of all of these guys using the properties that we covered in class, right? Now, if you know all the shortcuts, all the theorems, finding a different angle is much easier. So like if I was giving you the question, measure of this angle is 110 degrees, find the measure of angle 5, well, we'll be able to do that based off of those guys being in corresponding position, right? Which is what we're going to talk about. Corresponding angles. So these guys are on the same side of the parallel lines, and they are also on the same side of the transversal. So looking at this example in purple, right here. I'm going to put the transversal in green. So here's my transversal, and my parallel lines are going to be in red. Okay? So when it says the same side of the parallel lines, we have a top and a bottom, right, of the parallel lines. So they're going to be on the same side. Both of these angles, if they're corresponding angles, they're going to be on the same side. So both of these guys are on the top. They are not only on the same side of the parallel lines, they are also on the same side of the transversals. So that is to the right. These guys are both on the right of the transversal. So you would say that they are, you could say, some people say they are in the same corner, but these are corresponding angles. And corresponding angles are congruent, which means they have equal measure. Okay, so going back to this original question, we know that because those guys are in corresponding position, which is to the left of the transversal and above the parallel lines, measure of angle 5 would be 110, based off of corresponding angle theorem. Okay, so now we're going to look at another rule, which is a review again. We're looking at alternate interior angles. So the word alternate is referring to the transversal line, right? So they're alternating, or they're flipping across the transversal line. So the definition is they're on opposite sides of the transversal and inside, so interior is your clue for inside, the two parallel lines. So they're alternating and they're interior. So angles 3 and 6 are alternate interiors, and angles 4 and 5 are alternate interiors. Looking at just the vocabulary and knowing, what each of these words mean, alternate and exterior and interior and exterior, you'll be able to determine which angles are each of those. Okay, and those guys are congruent as well, as are these. These are also congruent. So alternate exterior angles are going to be ones that are flipping across the transversal. So on this example, angle 6 is on one side, and then angle 2 is on the other, and they are both exterior, right? They're not inside the parallel lines, they are outside the parallel lines. So these guys are alternate exterior angles, and alternate exterior angles are also congruent. So now we're getting into the same side. So the way I always remember which ones are which, and so all of our properties of the angles or theorems for these angles are congruent except for the same side ones. Except for the same side. And the way I remember is same side is supplementary. So the first letter is an S, right? And so therefore they are supplementary. So same side, supplementary. All the other ones don't start with S's. They start with A's, C's, and a V, right? So if you guys can remember that, if they are on the same side, if they are same side, they are supplementary. Supplementary means they equal 180 degrees, which is what we just covered like 3 minutes ago. Okay, so same side is also referring to the transversal, right? So this is the transversal. They are both on the same side of the transversal. So on this one, it's on the left of the transversal. And they are exterior angles. They are not inside, they are outside. Oh, I skipped one. So on same side interiors, it's the same thing. They are both on the same side of the transversal, but they are inside. They are inside the parallel lines. Okay, and again, these guys are supplementary. Supplementary. So if I said that the measure of angle B, in this one, measure of angle B was 70, I could set up the equation, 70 plus h is going to equal 180. Subtract 70, h would have to equal 110. Right? Because of it's supplementary. Awesome. This is the one that's going to be sticking around. Right? Even after we're done with this unit, this is going to stick around. Now, because it's not just parallel lines, it's any intersecting lines. Okay? And this is probably like one of the tougher ones, but it's really easy to identify, okay? So angles that are opposite each other, so measure angle A and angle B, are right across from each other. They share a vertex. These guys are congruent. So if I said the measure of angle B is 45 degrees, and the measure of angle A is also 45 degrees. Now the thing that I had mentioned in class was if I said that b equals 45 plus x, well, we could set it up as an equation, right, and solve what x is. So 45 plus x equals 45. Then we isolate x, right? That cancels, so it's 0. X equals 0, right? So we could set up that equation. And you could also have variables on both sides, which is something that we covered in class. You also have an ed puzzle based on that. This is important. So if you haven't studied this yet, you should definitely watch that ed puzzle. Very important. Watch that. All right, so we're going to go through some examples. I know the measure of this angle is 68. How? Well, those guys are in corresponding position. They are below the parallel lines and to the right, the transversal. So these guys are corresponding. Corresponding angles. Okay, this one, number 2. Ooh, didn't mean to draw that line. These guys are on the same side of the transversal and they are interiors. So same side interiors are supplementary. So when I add these guys together, I'm going to get 180. So I know that they're same side interiors. Same side interiors. And then 180 minus 134. That is 6. That is 6. This becomes a 7. That becomes 4. So 46, right? So x is going to equal 46. Okay, number 3, vertical angles. Right, they're right across from each other. So vertical angles are congruent. So this is 120. Vertical angles. These are alternating across the transversal and they are interiors, so x equals 101 because they're alternate interiors, so alt interiors. Okay, and then here's what the ones that I was talking about. So you have to know your properties in order to be able to solve these. These guys are same side interiors as well. That means when you add them together, it's going to equal 180 degrees. That looks like not equal. It is equal. It equals 180 degrees. So when you add those two guys together, so if you write out an equation, it'd be 3x plus 6x equals 180. 3 plus 6 is 9, so we get 9x equals 180. Divide by 9, divide by 9, x equals 20. We're not done though, right? So find the variable and the measure. So we do 3 times 20 equals 60. 6 times 20. I'm just substituting, guys. That's what I'm doing right now. Substituting. So x equals 120. So the measure of those angles is 60 degrees and 120 degrees. 60 plus 120 equals 180. So it does work. These guys are going to be congruent because they are alternate exterior angles. So we would set those guys equal to each other. 7x minus 12 equals 3x plus 28. So I'm going to solve this. Inverse operations. So we got 7x equals 3x plus 40. Subtract 3x, we get 4x equals 40. Divide by 4, x equals 10. Again, we are not done. We just found the variable x. We also have to substitute it in. So that's going to be 7 times 10 minus 12. So we got 70 minus 12 equals 58. So this one's 58. That means the other one's got to be 58. But let's just plug it in and see. So we got 3 times 10 plus 28. 30 plus 28 equals 58. So they both are equal to 58. So we are absolutely right. All right. So that's what we covered this week. And those were all of our notes that we did. So make sure that you are still annotating your notes, adding questions, and a solid summary. All right, guys. I hope you guys are watching this before the test. Good luck. Keep studying. Have a good weekend. Be safe. Have fun. See you next time.